apology for lateness from Councillor McTavish. So I'll move that be. Thank you, Councillor Peake. All in favour? Against? Carried. Confirmation of the agenda. I don't have any changes.
I'll move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I would like to ask why it is that we've got sister city visits under a economic development agenda. I don't think it's appropriate.
I'll second the motion.
The new delegations put sister cities under the Economic Development Committee. That's where sister cities now sit.
Can somebody explain to me what a visit to a leading resort town like Otaru in Japan or to Edinburgh has to do with economic development here in Dunedin?
Councillor Vandervis, I think that's probably something that should happen when we're in discussion on that paper, rather than now. This is just confirming the agenda. Ms Graham has said that it is under this committee, so the paper is here to be discussed.
Can I ask who put it under this committee?
We did.
In that case, can I have my objection to it being put under the Economic Development Committee reported, please?
I don't think you can if you're at that meeting,
Yeah.
because you would have recorded it then, would you?
No, this is confirmation of agenda. I would like my vote against the agenda being confirmed.
Well, when we vote, you have the right to vote no, Councillor Vandervis, and to give your reason. So we have a move by John Bozette, seconded by Councillor Wilson. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against?
No, recorded, please.
Councillor Vandervis. Declarations of interest, just a reminder that you need to stand aside from items where you have an interest, and I will notify now that I will be standing aside on item 7 on the digital funding of the digital office. Okay, agenda item 4, Sister City Visits 2014.
Mr. Chairman, on the floor.
So Andrew and David. Okay. Welcome, Sandy.
Council also just been trying to get your attention for some time. Sorry, just with regards to the agenda, I was under the impression that items... Okay, apologies.
You have a short report outlining the planned sister city visits. I'm happy to take questions.
Councillor Kelvin.
Just a couple of wee questions. One, can we have a wee bit more information ending up on the website or somewhere about teasing out a wee bit more of the costs of the visits, just because it seems to me the more transparency we can have. Is that something more than about 13,000 or something?
We don't even know the cost,
Right,
the
yeah.
full cost until at the end, but you can be sure that that information will be made public one way or another. And we always get a request for this information. We've been proactively putting what information we can, so we always provide that information.
And the second thing, when it says here that we usually have one per triennium, or that's the policy or something, and that we didn't have one last time, does that mean we're likely to have 2 this time, or is this the one for this time, or it's just a notion?
And unfortunately, I didn't have the information available when the report was due to go with the agenda, but we went to Edinburgh last on a mayoral visit in 2006, and Otaru in 2010. So it doesn't. It's been quite a period of time since we've been to Edinburgh.
So this is this time's.
Just happens to be how the anniversaries fall and when the invitation was received.
Councillor Wilson.
I'm not quite sure if you're the right person to answer this since everyone else has withdrawn, but the economic development measures that this is going to be enhancing, I understand festivals, every festival is one of the connections that's being made. I'm just wondering if you can tell us what's on the agenda in Japan. You may not be the best person.
No, I can't, I'm sorry, I can't, but somebody might be.
So when we are in Otaru, we're going to be, we have an existing relationship with the Otaru Museum over there, that's by Toishu and the Otago Museum. We'll be meeting with the Chamber of Commerce over there. So the Chamber of Commerce sent a delegate in John Christie in 2010, so we'll be keeping up that relationship. We'll obviously be meeting with the Mayor, we'll be meeting with the Otaru University of Commerce, who have a relationship with the University of Otago, and there is a student exchange going on there that's been going on for over 20 years now. We're also going to be visiting a couple of businesses over there. We've got a good connection with Silverfern Farms over there, so we'll be using that connection in Otaru as well.
Just a subsequent question. Later on we talk about the education side of the growth needed. When you talk about them having exchanges, are we trying to sell our education over there as an education for them to come over?
Yes, the Mayor has a briefing paper that includes what we're trying to achieve with export education, and especially in Japan, and the fact that that is an upcoming market for us. And probably Sarah can talk about that further when she comes to the table.
Thank you.
Councillor Bazette.
Yes, I'll move the recommendation, Mr. Chairman. I'll move the recommendation. I accept that the point that maybe Councillor Van Bus was alluding to before, that it may not fall under this jurisdiction of this committee, but the fact is it does. And we do have a policy with regards to city visits. And while I accept that you can change policy from time to time, now is not the time to do it. So, given that it is our policy and it fits within the criteria where we have an official visit every triennium, I think this is not unreasonable, so I'll move the recommendation.
Councillor Van Bus.
How many years have we been having official visits to Otaru?
I don't have that information, but I assume we've visited as we've been able during the course of the sister city relationship.
It's been at least the 10 years I've been on council. During that 10 years,
25.
during that time, can you give any examples of any economic development that might have come about as a result of all these rather expensive visits to Otaru?
I don't have that information available at this time, Councillor.
Okay, do you recall the head of our Economic Development Unit, Des Adamson, admitting that basically 20 years of sister city exchanges, talking specifically about Shanghai, had not yielded anything of note, but that in the Shanghai case...
Point of order, Chairman, that is a misrepresentation of what both Mr Adamson and Mr Christie, who were present in the same discussion, said. Both of them talked about the steps that had taken place, particularly over the last few years, and the fact that this was a relationship building process, and that there were very quite concrete steps now starting to come out of that. So I think to present it as Councillor Van Der Bus does, particularly in the absence of both of those people, is quite inappropriate.
I accept that as a valid point of order, Councillor Van Der Bus. It wasn't what was originally said. You have taken a wee bit of a liberty with it.
If I can pick up on Councillor Thompson's words, concrete steps now starting to happen in the case of Shanghai, and a building of relationships. I have been hearing those words regarding the continued sister city travel arrangements since 2004. Since 2004, 10 years now, we have had concrete steps now starting. What I want to know is, after 10 years of concrete steps now starting, to quote Councillor Thompson, when are we actually going to see anything positive happening for this continued expenditure?
Councillor
which
Vanderlist, is
nobody
that
that
a
voted for
question
me-
of Ms Graham?
Yes, when are we going to see something happening from the concrete steps now starting? And given that they've been starting for all the years I've been councillor, when are we going to actually see some of these concrete steps actually take place? Given that they've been now starting for more than 10 years.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Sorry. I've just had some news late this morning that one of our companies have signed a major deal in Shanghai just over the last couple of days with an recent visit.
Delighted to hear about Shanghai. I could even see a point for Shanghai. What we're talking about here is not a major city.
Councillor Vanderlist, can you allow Ms Graham to answer your previous question?
Oh, I was just responding to the interruption just now.
Well, I think Mr Gray provided an answer, and this is a process, an ongoing process. We are committed to building a relationship, and that's nothing more I can say about that.
Why would we be committed to building a relationship with what is a resort town? Japan's equivalent of Queenstown. Shanghai, you might be able to spin an argument for, but Otaru, really? In 10 years, we've had 2 cherry trees planted out the side. We've had numerous visits. What evidence has there been of any economic development coming from it?
Oh, I can't answer that.
Thank you for trying.
Councillor Wilson.
Mr Chairman, whether that debate is worthy of having, my concern is that that's one that should be done at standing orders when we confirm that we're going to continue with the sister cities and not be one for this debate today now. We reconfirmed that relationship at the standing orders. We put funding in for sister city relationships.
Is there a question?
No, I thought that had been moved. Sorry, I thought this was debate.
I was still in question time.
Oh, sorry, it had been moved and seconded. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, but it's about the direction of this. If we're going to continue on that line, I don't think it's appropriate. It's the wrong meeting to have that debate.
Councillor Thompson, did you have a question?
I did have a question. Because it predates my time on council, are you able to tell me when council signed up to its various sister city relationships? Not the date that they signed. Are you able to tell me when they signed up to their various sister city relationships? Was the stated purpose of the sister city program to derive commercial advantage out of the sister city arrangement, or did it have in fact a much wider focus than that?
Yes, it had a much wider focus. So sister cities were always about relationships. So that's the history of them coming through relationships, getting to know and understand each other. That old adage about world peace and that ability for us to understand. So only recently has the debate become more about them being economic sister city relationships, and of course we're certainly moving in that way with Shanghai, but there is not that same move with Otaru in particular.
So would it be reasonable to assume that when most of us as individuals go to visit our sisters, we do so with the intention of maintaining a friendly and fraternal relationship rather than hoping we can get some dosh out of them?
Councillors, any other questions? Councillor McTavish.
I just have a query about the nature of communications that are likely to come back. And in particular, I ask this because I think the expectation from our citizens is increasingly that one gets real-time information from delegations, and it's difficult when we don't have press travelling with the group to hear in real time what is happening, and I think it would help perhaps show the reasons and the importance of delegations like this, were it possible to have regular social media updates. And I just wondered whether that was intended and whether we could hear a little bit more about it.
We can certainly make sure that that does, and make sure our comms folks are in regular contact with the visiting delegations.
All right, the recommendation's been moved by Councillor Rosette and seconded by Councillor Wilson. So, debate. Councillor Vanders.
When Edinburgh was being visited by Mayor Chin, the chief executive then, Mayor Chin's wife and various others back in 2000, whatever it was, 6 I think, the argument then was that there was going to be some commercial advantage in doing it, and that they were going to justify the trip by bringing back specific information and specific projects that would be of direct benefit to Dunedin ratepayers. The specific benefit that came back from that particular sojourn to Edinburgh was Chief Executive Harlan's bringing back a prospectus of a Scottish windmill power generating company that seemed to have quite a nice idea for a new type of windmill. It was a small start-up company that he had visited for a couple of hours in the several days that he spent in Scotland, in Edinburgh. At the time, I questioned how on earth a start-up company in Scotland's windmill design would have any economic benefit for Dunedin. It was claimed that we could actually import those things here and generate power here, and that there would be a win-win all round. Of course, none of this happened. I believe that that was the only reason put forward for justifying the expense to ratepayers of this overseas trip. I'm concerned that we might not even get a windmill design this time. If we've got a wider focus and the sister cities are all about relationships and world peace, then we have $18,000 at least in direct costs from this trip, to say nothing of all the indirect costs of when we have to invite them back for the balancing visit that they'll make here. We'll have nothing to show ratepayers at all. We all know that council's constrained, we all know that ratepayers are under pressure, we all know that businesses here are under pressure. When we have a spending of ratepayers' money in this sort of fashion, to me, it represents a culture of entitlement, which I don't think is appropriate. A culture of entitlement at the top of an organisation like this very rapidly trickles down. It may be the only thing that trickles down in any particular organisation. We have too much of a culture of entitlement in the DCC as an organisation as it is. Nobody that voted for me that I've spoken with in the last few days approves of spending $18,000 sending elected representatives to either Otaru or Edinburgh. We've done it before, we've done it before repeatedly, we've spent millions doing it by now, and there has been no benefit for ratepayers that has resulted. To that end, I believe we should be voting against this recommendation and try and turn the tide on a culture which has trickled down through the rest of the organisation. A culture that says, actually, I deserve to go on this trip. I deserve to go on this conference. I need this. When in fact we don't.
No other speakers? Councillor McTavish.
Well, I wasn't going to speak to this motion, but I think that frankly, is a fairly difficult thing to sit through and not respond to. So I think I'll just make a couple of points. And the first is that we are sitting in the Edinburgh room, and I think the history and the relationship that we have with Edinburgh goes well beyond our sister city relationship. It goes back a long time, and I think it is appropriate that we recognise a significant milestone in the relationship that we have with a sister city by sending a fairly small delegation over there. In terms of a culture of entitlement in this organisation, I find it very difficult to sit through a speech listening to that when I know the extent to which staff are working incredibly hard to find savings, and when I personally have just taken a trip myself overseas for 7 weeks, spending a whole lot of time looking at local government initiatives over there, none of which was ratepayer funded. So I think it was very difficult for that generalisation to be made in such a way. I also think that when the past 7 weeks that I've spent in Europe, there is an incredible richness of initiatives and culture and projects over there that we could and should be learning a whole lot from. And when you look at things like the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which is so popular and I think, it's world renowned, we should be learning from things like that. And there are certain things that one cannot learn without having representatives visiting those initiatives. So I support this. I think that if one wants to have a discussion about the merits of sister city relationships, one should have that in a substantive, when we're discussing that substantive issue. When we're sitting around the table discussing budgets for sister city relationships, by all means have that discussion. But to have that discussion when we talk about effectively an operational matter about how we conduct our business within that sister city budget for this year, I just don't think that's particularly appropriate. So I reject the notion of a culture of entitlement within this organisation, particularly within this governance body, and I reject the notion that this is an inappropriate way to spend council's funds, because I think that it is important in a year when we do have a milestone like this to mark that we mark it appropriately.
Councillor White.
Thank you. I can assure Councillor Vandervis that we have had visitors from Otaru and Edinburgh who've come here to see what our sister city relationship is like. I've had golfers turn up from Otaru to say, to see what their sister city look like and spend money here. So there is an economic benefit in those aspects. I've got one member of the golf club who actually moved here for the summers, because I guess they're a lot like Edinburgh, but they have moved here in September each year and they go back in March each year. And they found that moving here through the sister city relationship. So there are other benefits, purely not all tangible that we can see on paper, but these relationships are coming out of our sister city.
Councillor Wilson.
I just wanted to, I'm going to support this, not surprisingly since I seconded it, but I just want to give the picture that thank you to the councillors in the mayor for committing to do this, because they're not dawns, they are working exceedingly hard work, these things. There's a heck of a lot of travel for a relatively short amount of time, and it's not something that international travel isn't something that, because of those, a lot of people actually always like. I think that this is about opening doors and keeping doors open to people in the city who want to do business. I know that just the relationships have been built up at, for example, the Otago Museum, and getting 600 people to understand better about Otago that went through the exhibition there, who will, and we may never know the benefits of that, but there's very likely to be intangible benefits of business that do come out of those sort of things. I've got no doubt that the linkages with potentially the arts festivals and the readers and writers in Scotland it will be a huge benefit to this city. and economic benefits will come out of those. And I think I'm absolutely thrilled that instead of being a Silver Ferns Farms trip to Otaru, we've actually got a councillor going in as a farmer and opening the doors, because I know that will give a very different culture. And what Andrew's done in the past, entertaining people from Otaru when they were here, it just continues the relationship. And it is about continuity, it's about keeping the doors open so that when we've got someone who wants to go there, the next Sculpt technology that wants to go there, and they've talked about how they've got a good relationship with Silver Fern Farms or whatever, those stories have been told. And I'm sorry, I think it's a really good investment, and I think it'd be a sad loss. And it certainly isn't the time to be debating the commitment we've made to these.
Councillor Thompson.
I certainly support this. I just make a couple of quick points. One is that if you look at this cost and spread it over the amount of time that it has been since the last visit, it's an extraordinary small sum of money.
Councillor Vandevers.
It's going to be a long day. Secondly, Councillor Vandevers has this habit of setting up straw men that he can knock down. And the straw man in this occasion is that the purpose of sister city relationships is economic benefit. That is not the purpose that they were set up for. And the fact that he wishes to persistently state that it was doesn't make it any more right. And it's so much easier to knock down a straw man that isn't a correct one in the first place. So this is not about commercial benefit, it is about sister city relationships. And if you want to debate the merits or otherwise of having sister city relationships, as several speakers have already said, do that at the appropriate time. Don't do it every time there is an operational implementation of a decision that council has previously taken, because it's tiresome.
Before offering the right of reply to Councillor Bazette, I just want to have my two penneth worth in this, having visited Shanghai as a sister city on a number of occasions, for which I have never claimed any money from council. These visits are not junkets. They are quite hard work. They involve a lot of time, a lot of effort, and having to think on your feet in quite difficult situations sometimes. So they're not a junket, but the information that comes back, at least through my experiences in Shanghai, is invaluable. And while Councillor Vandevers is saying nothing has been achieved, there has been an awful lot achieved. There are financial benefits flowing to the university, to the Polytechnic. We've heard today of a company that has signed an agreement in Shanghai. We hopefully will be close to signing some agreements for research collaboration this time around. So there is quite a lot happening in that space. But the reason for the original Sister City agreement wasn't just economic benefit. And in fact, the reason that we are regarded so highly by Shanghai is that economic benefit wasn't number one on top of the agenda. There are other cities who are sister cities of Shanghai whose primary purpose was to form a sister city relationship purely to ease more business transactions. We've taken a much more developed approach, spreading right across our culture through into economic benefits. And who's to say that won't appear from Edinburgh even more in the future? There is a willingness to engage more, and I think they are. We have such great links with Edinburgh as a city. I think there are good opportunities that need to be investigated, and hopefully we will find a little bit more from the delegation when they return. So, Councillor Bazette, your right to reply.
Yeah, look, the decision on this issue has been made. It was made during the annual plan time. And while I accept that Councillor Vandevers and perhaps others have the rights to their views that are against this, and could very well be that they have support from, and I'm sure they do, from a number of our residents. Nonetheless, as I say, the debate should be held at annual plan time, and I think that's when you'll have an opportunity, as others will, as to what we do with sister cities in the future.
All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against?
No, recorded, please.
Carried. That brings us to item 5. We'll welcome Margot Reid and Ross Graham. Margot, the floor is yours.
Okay, so we're just to application on the Red Carpet project, which comes out of the Economic Development Strategy. It is part of the Business Vitality strategic plan. We have made good progress since the last time we talked to you. We are at the stage now where some parts of this project that have been in pilot now need to we need to see whether they should now be embedded into the normal operational procedures within council. So we'll be doing some work there to bring you some results at the next meeting around that. But the indications are, especially in the relationship manager pilot, that will just become part of business as usual for council. The business advice clinic is going very well, and another area where we're just starting to do some work is around the organisational development and performance for council, where we're looking to further embed our customer service role with both business and just our regular clients and as well, so that project work will be started soon, and we're bringing in other parts of council to make this happen, so that we're not in a silo approach, but it's something that we're looking to do across all council services. So there's a number of future projects there that have been noted, including Local Government New Zealand's Reputation Index, which has come at a very timely, in general, for most local government around the country. We will get a good indication of how we're going as a council, but also how we're stacking up against other councils around the country as well, in terms of both business and customer service in general.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Kelly.
I think possibly the biggest threat, if you like, to the Red Carpet project is that if it's good, then everyone wants one. I'd be interested to know whether a plan would be to try and extend the approach to as wide a possible range of people who have dealings with the council on more than a one-off basis, and whether, as a separate issue, whether when we're looking at the feedback, whether we can ask the people who are in it or not in it, whether that would alter their perception of how we relate to them.
So the answer is yes, and I suppose you're very right in that the idea is not to be overwhelmed by this so that we end up providing bad service rather than good because we're too stretched. So the criteria for getting a relationship manager will have to, that is an area that we're going to have to think very carefully about so that we can contain that in some way. At the moment it is working quite well in that we've got a criteria where we're looking for projects that are worth over $1 million. It will have a significant impact on the on the employment rates for the city. And that has meant that so far in the last year we've identified 16 projects which we've helped with a relationship manager, and that has been very manageable. If as a city we were to develop economically at a much faster rate in the future, which is what we would want, we would have to look carefully at how we manage that. but we will continue to monitor it. In terms of giving other people or organisations the kind of service we're giving those 16, that will come when we look at the organisational development and performance of the entire council. So as much as we're focused on business at the moment, what we're hoping we'll do is that it will roll out and trickle down so that the kind of service we're generally giving is something that will be expected by everybody who comes and spends time in council.
Councillor Vanderus.
Hi, on page 5.2 it says, anecdotal feedback from clients has been very positive, with a good flow of communication resulting in a no surprise approach to the consent application process. My long-standing feedback anecdotally from builders, developers, business people and potential homeowners has been that not only is our consent process much more expensive than most other cities in the country, and it took a very expensive consultant to confirm that a year or two ago, but that the consent process delays were still as bad now as they've ever been. So my anecdotal experience from clients has been very negative.
Councillor Vanderus,
with a very good
is this a question?
Yes. It is a question. My anecdotal experience from clients has been very negative, with a very good flow, strong flow of communication resulting from all of these kinds of people still now, that they are constantly surprised at the consent application process, A, being so expensive, and B, taking so long. How is it that you can have anecdotal feedback which says something, and yet all my anecdotal feedback is completely contrary, and actually if you look at the facts of the application process for consents here, they tend to support the feedback I'm giving. So how do you
Mr. Chairman, it seems to me this is a matter that really is a regulatory matter, a question that would be better put to staff at the Planning and Regulatory Committee when they will be in a position to respond. Absolutely. I'm not sure that much more is acknowledge the skills of the staff members here today that they can answer for in terms of time frame and details about regulatory performance. Happy to refute what's been said, but I'd like to do it in the appropriate form.
I think probably, Councillor Vanderus, the area you're going into is not a specialty for Margot.
I'm not going into any area other than 2 lines in their own report on page 5.2.
Councillor Wilson.
Under, I think, 312.4, I think it's a misrepresentation of what this report says. It's quite clearly under the headline relationship manager pilot. It is not about the day-to-day applications for resource consent. It is about the ones that are going through actual pilot. And so it's quite different from, unless what has been happening beforehand that was referred to by the councillor, and the day-to-day normal business that he also referred to. It is about those projects that are under that pilot. And that, I think, is just the contrast. But he's misrepresenting what that sentence means, in what cases it's referring to.
I'd uphold that point of order. All right. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you. Excuse me. A few things about the business advice clinic. 28 clinics with 47 appointments doesn't seem like a lot. I'm just wondering whether is that gathering momentum as things go along, or is that seen as a success in terms of numbers?
Well, it's only the number of people who ring up and actually want to use that service. So in terms of, yes, it is gathering momentum in terms of us pushing that message out there that we've actually got that service available. Sometimes we might only have one person turn up, sometimes we might end up with 4 appointments on Tuesday evening. I would say that generally we're seeing more people than we would if we just turned up at council and wanted to speak to somebody on any normal basis. The ability for them to get a prescribed appointment on a Tuesday evening and spend half an hour sitting down and talking to a business advisor means that they're able to access those services better than they have in the past.
Can I just add too that some of that period that's mentioned there was a start-up trial as well, and there wasn't terribly much advertising. There was more people just approaching us and making an appointment. We're actively out there and we'll be doing some more promotion around attracting support for that.
Do we have any even informal demographic information as to who these clients are? I guess my point is, have you noticed have there been approaches from younger startup businesses, particularly ones that come out of other schemes that are operating in that space in the city that are looking to take on professionally?
Not particularly. It's been pretty cross-section from young entrepreneurs through to other start-up opportunities that people are looking for themselves.
And is this opportunity open to, I just asked this because as it mentioned specifically, non-profit and social enterprise groups, and has it been taken up by those groups? If so?
I think we've had a couple in that were non-profit, but hasn't been promoted as such to non-profit.
Is there any reason why?
No.
And just lastly, I'm pretty interested in this rebrand as simply red carpet and not red carpet, not red tape, and the perception issues that caused. Since not everyone believes red tape is a toxic phrase necessarily. How dare regulation be positive? But can you talk a bit more about how that came through, how that feedback came through?
Well, generally, when I sat down with the resource consents team just to see how they were finding the pilot, it was feedback that they gave us generally, and they're at the cold face of dealing with developers. And I suppose it would be fair to say that within council there has been some concern that this project does mean that we will go out there and break the rules, and so categorically I've been told very clearly that that's not the case, that's not what this is about. But there has certainly been a perception among business out there that this project means that they can hop some steps to doing what to do. So that just means that it's not out there in any way. We're just here to provide a red carpet service.
And hard to know that isn't the case.
Councillor Law.
Yeah, look, my questions, I have 3 questions. The first one was in relation to the 16 pilot projects that we've taken on, and I'm not going to hold you and hang you out your role on this, but are you reasonably confident that that will translate through to jobs in the city, or some of those will?
Well, yes, I think one of the most public ones we've dealt with is People Gold, who have come in from Lawrence, and so they've been a red carpet project of ours. So they've brought 70 people down from Lawrence, and they're about to take on more staff in the next part of their project. So,
And some of the other projects will be as good, yeah?
One of the other projects was the Greaves development down here, which was recovered. Greaves, Searless Greaves, yeah, bringing the coffee production down from Auckland to boost up Dunedin.
And then my next question was, with your business advice clients, I actually think they're a really good idea, and I understand that there will be people who've got no idea how to start a business but may have a really good idea, and for a 30-minute consultation it's not a lot of effort to put in if it's going to progress something further. But are you seeing any of those looking potentially fruitful?
Like a lot of projects, quite long term. There has been some really good ideas coming through, and certainly we try and advise people to put all the steps in place before they commit. So at this stage we haven't followed any of those up yet, but that'll be part of the review process.
And my third question is perhaps slightly different, and I remember once Councillor Benson posed to me as Attila the Hun, and my question is, I don't want this to sound bad, but my question is, with the future project work that you're going to do a survey of the 16 versus maybe 16 that haven't gone through that process, would I love to see is if you could actually broaden that even further and say, is there anyone out there that has any dissatisfaction with how the city has treated them? And I realise you open that up and get a whole lot of nebulous complaints as well, but I just think that in the aims of really good improving strategies, we've got to know everyone that's dissatisfied and trying to find as many. So I'm not suggesting for a moment that you're trying to break the scales, but would you be prepared to open it up to anyone who has dissatisfaction?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the projects we're going to be working on in the next 12 months is the complaints policy generally for council, and that will be much more rigorous. We're going to be capturing statistics around it, and it will be well publicised what process people can go through if they've got complaints. And then we will start to see patterns emerging and allow us to work much harder at
Councillor Wilson.
Well, that almost covers off my question, because I agree with some of the points Lee was making about general, if they don't get up to your red carpet treatment, how do they get, or how do you find consistent problems in the system that may need to be dealt with? And the question then, carrying on, is can you start capturing that now? When people ring in with their complaints and you see quite quickly that there's just something simple that can be unlocked. I mean, if people do have a process issue, they should be ringing in now, customer services, shouldn't they?
Yes, so in the next week I'll be sitting down with Adrian Beer, who's the CSA manager, and it's a project we'll be starting to work on very quickly.
Thank you.
Councillor McFadden.
I was just going to ask, in terms of the 48 or 47 that you have had come through, is there any intention to follow up with them to find out actually what the outcomes were for them? Because, I mean, it's great if there are 48 people coming in to have a chat, but it's important for us to know if it's working or not, 6 months down the track or whatever, to find out what the outcomes were for them.
Yeah. So, possibly what we should have also said was that the business advice clinic was in pilot as well. So yes, we will be. So we've got a spreadsheet there with details of those, and we'll continue to have that. So we've got statistics there. They just haven't been included in this report, and we will be getting feedback from them to see how it's gone. People get wary of being surveyed all the time, so we just need to find appropriate ways to get that feedback that's going to be appropriate for everybody. Yes, we will.
Councillor Vanders.
Councillor Lord has already asked my question. Thank you.
No other questions? Is someone prepared to move the recommendations? Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Seconder, Councillor Lord. Debate. Councillor Vanders.
The EDU has been trying for a very long time now to get the kind of results that, as Ross quite rightly says, a lot of these projects take quite a long time, or are quite long term. I sympathise that trying to get quantifiable results when so many of the risks and so many of the influences on business are actually outside your control must be a bit of a galling task at times. If the economy turns down and there is no confidence and interest rates are too high, you can't very well just produce a whole lot of businesses out of nowhere. Having said that, we have been putting now an awful lot of funding into the Economic Development Unit. Its latest change, if you like, its latest reincarnation and slightly different emphasis, I think was, probably optimistic, but may have been a good idea. But this report here, and I come back to 5.2, if there are, and I would like to see evidence of it, but if there are 16 happy red carpet millionaires, does that really do anything to help the bulk of what is actually happening, the hundreds and hundreds of consent applications which are going beyond the 20 days that we're supposed to produce them in, which are inordinately expensive in Dunedin compared to other cities. And that this problem has been with us now for many years. It was several years ago, I think 3 years ago, that an engineer quantified the relative time taken and the relative cost of certain projects to get consented in Dunedin compared to other cities around the place. This engineer did a very comprehensive job, and it showed that we were the most expensive and also we took the longest time to do these things. However, staff weren't satisfied. There was not enough time.
This remains as irrelevant as it was last time, and I made my point before, and so did Councillor Wilson. You upheld it and asked you to do so again, please. It's not about the content of the report.
Councillor Vandervis, if you could restrict your comments to the report, please.
The report is on the Red Carpet project update. The previous report was on the sister city development. I've only spoken to both of those. I find it quite galling that I'm not allowed to have my say because some people don't like what it is I'm saying. And that you as chair are going to support supposed points of order, which in fact aren't. The points of order criteria are tight. They need to be read by chairs, yourself in particular, and I think Ms Graham will confirm that a point of order really does need to be a point of order rather than someone just not liking what somebody else is saying. Getting back to the subject in hand, the issues that I have regarding Red Carpet project update are that if this Red Carpet project is actually reducing the delays and reducing the costs of consents, I would like to see some evidence of that. And even if it is, why is it that we are focusing on so few people when there are hundreds of applications? And I've recently had complaints from a builder who said he's having to lay off staff because he can't get his consent through in time, the project can't go forward, and these problems keep coming, they're not new. So what I would like to come out of all of this is, if this pilot actually does work, and if we can get some evidence to show that it works, why is it that we can't get it to work for everybody? Why is it that we can't get it to work for the bulk, especially since we've known about this problem for many years?
Councillor Keller.
I'm very pleased that the Economic Development Unit is trialling or working towards this red carpet sort of approach, and the idea that people will have, and I think this is the idea, a single voice, a single idea, a single place that they can get feedback from, which should be more efficient and things, starting at the top and hopefully working through other departments. My only feeling of caution is that it's very tempting to start setting up individual bits which works against exactly where we're going here. And I noticed the summary at the top of this report, for example, describes the DCC. So the project's goal is across the DCC. It moves on to being the project convened by the DCC as one strategy partner, as and then says coordinated by the Business Development Advisor Enterprise Dunedin. So we've already got the DCC as one entity, for want of a better word, and then Business Development Advisor Enterprise Dunedin, and then Grow Dunedin. And I think it's going to be very important and sometimes a challenge to the Economic Development Unit as well as the rest of Council that we don't end up having these little silos and little projects, and this is Grow Dunedin, and this is Enterprise Dunedin, and this is the DCC, and all of them end up with little things, and then you have to appoint somebody to talk to people out there who want to talk to any of them, so as a coordinated approach. So if the Economic Development Unit could keep the idea too that themselves is a point of contact and try and sort of mirror and use the same sort of approach that they're trying to encourage in the rest of council, I think that would be very helpful.
Councillor Wilson.
I'm going to support this. I think it's a wonderful start, but I think the test is in the long term, and in the smaller projects it's really easy sometimes for the bigger companies to get the help anyway and to move out there for the help. There's a lot of small businesses out there, and Dunedin I think has a probably larger proportion of small to medium sized businesses that can't always get the help, and that I know 10 years on after I started a cafe, of another cafe experiencing exactly the same problems I had 10 years ago, which I thought I'd got fixed within the system. So I'm hoping that we'll get down to that level which we can help those smaller businesses. I just wanted to comment on claims made in the last 3 years on resource consent and good consent fees only because it's been raised in the debate. And I share the concern that we addressed around the table 3 years ago. Those were dealt with, and there have been changes. And I think generally applications that come of a high standard and are built well, actually the costs have reduced since then, and that's my understanding. I just wanted to put that out there because I think there was a misrepresentation of some of the facts earlier.
That was right of reply.
Oh, sorry.
So you moved it.
Yes, I do.
I had no other speakers registered. So
Can I ask a question? It occurred to me and asked me before, but it really comes from the comments that Councillor Vandervis made, and it might be helpful if this was to actually take place, which is your information booklet. And you were saying, Margot, that you were looking to do something in the future.
Yes.
Is that going to happen, or is it something you're still contemplating? Because I think the point behind the question is if we can get information out there to people, likes of some that Councillor Vandervis is referring to, then it may be that there's a greater understanding of what we're trying to do.
Agreed, and yes, we certainly are going to put information out about the Red Carpet project. It was a matter of getting through the pilot first and making sure that anything that we thought was going to work, it didn't. So it's a bit of smoothing off the rough edges first before we put something like that out into the public arena. But absolutely, there'll be as much information in as many places as we can about this particular part of council service.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
No recorded, please.
That brings us to item 6. We welcome Sarah and Mike Wardell. Floor's yours.
Oh, thank you, Chair and Councillors. Look, I'm pleased as the Chair of the Advisory Board for the Export Education Strategy to advise that this report has been through the Advisory Board. The Advisory Board, as you'll see there, consists of representatives from the University, the Polytechnic, the private sector and the secondary school sector. We meet regularly and we continue to develop the strategy that Sarah is actively implementing for us. So I think the key thing here is this strategy is designed to link into the Education New Zealand strategy. We are very fortunate that Education New Zealand has also helped fund part of this strategy and has offered further regional funding as we develop, so it's a partnership that we're doing. So it is key that we carry this on, and we're fortunate to have the members of the Advisory Board, and I think a key component here is that this is about a public-private partnership. In other words, we have also got the private sector involved. You'll be aware that there is a lot happening from the export education sector in the private sector.
over 900,000 students are being delivered education out of this city through the ICT sector. So we're making sure that we're linking here. But anyway, this report was prepared by Sarah, and it's my pleasure to be able to hand it over to you, Sarah. Thanks.
Great, so just an update. So the Expert Education project has been active since about February of this year. There are 6 key projects to double the value of international education to the Dunedin's economy to 230 million by 2023. So
Sarah, could you pull your microphone just up a little bit?
It's currently evaluated at 165 million, so it's a significant part of our economy, both on a cultural level and on an economic basis too. So this is something that's been supported by the key stakeholders. It's something that's supported at the national level quite strongly, and we're very pleased to see it come together in a strategic way that has key projects to both drive the value as well as supporting our stakeholders along the way.
So, councillors, questions? Councillor Wiley.
Mike, I understand you just got back from Shanghai. How did that trip go in regards to this?
Well, it's totally in alignment with it. We got back last evening, so I can endorse the announcement that was made about one of the contracts for a major city. An employer here was signed an agreement, which was fantastic. So everything does line up, and I think the other thing is, maybe it's a slight digression, but while we were there, we were able to visit Otago students who are in Shanghai at the courtesy of the Shanghai government at their cost. And they are actually being offered a lot of opportunity in their summer schools. So there's a whole alignment about not only just from a revenue perspective, but in fact an internationalisation perspective. So, and in our case, we are now down to signing a contract with a major university in Shanghai about providing students coming into our city here. So those relationships happen. They do take time, as been noted today, but I believe certainly things are progressing.
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you. I have a question about the footnote on page 6.6 with regards to Thailand. We're currently deciding if Study Dunedin will attend those events as a delegation and engage in post-event activities apropos of the Thai political situation. Can I get an idea of on what grounds that decision would be made? Is it a principled decision? Is it a physical safety decision? What will be the deciding factors as to whether or not we go ahead with Thailand?
So it's whether or not Education New Zealand chooses to run the government-endorsed fairs that will happen in Bangkok on September 20th. That's been confirmed. So we've now gone ahead with the program for the Thai Fairs Post-Extension Activity Program.
Okay, and can you tell me what they make that
I can't, no. So it was confirmed that the Thai events will go ahead with an alumni reception, a networking event with agents, and the Education New Zealand Fair on the 20th. So henceforth, we went back to our original plan. It's where our stakeholders want to be. It's where we have potential to extend the Dunedin brand as a viable study destination, and it's something that we want to do.
And when do we go to Brazil?
That's TBC.
Councillor Wilson.
No, it's fine.
Councillor Law.
Yes, Sarah, I've just got a question, and I didn't quite pick it up partially yet, but did you say that we're annually receiving 165 million as the benefit to the city from education?
International education.
So is that university,
that's
polytechnic, and high school?
That's the entire sector. That's the entire evaluation of international education to Otago's regional economy. So it's not just Dunedin, it has to be all of Otago. That's how it's evaluated based on the Education New Zealand report.
Is that based on fees or the cost of their living?
It's all of that stuff. So it's all kind of the economic reverberations for having international students in our city, as well as the other consultancy service being provided offshore. That's correct. So the average international student contributes over $42,000 annually to Dunedin's economy.
Perhaps a question for Mike, but to grow that to 330 million, do you think that's quite an achievable thing?
I think providing that we act as one country and then one city, it is achievable. In the past we have often acted as not always one country, we've often acted as one region, and sad as it might be, Dunedin is not actually known globally. So one country first, one city second. In Dunedin, we intend to lead New Zealand as the place to come for study.
Councillor Kelvin.
I really like these metrics and outcomes and things parts of this project because I can sort of get a real feel for where it's going to. How and when are they measured? I presume some of them, we've got a baseline now and we're going to, because they say things like that it increases or that more people do something or whatever. Could you tell us a little bit more about how the projects are
Did you have
measured?
a specific project in mind? Because they're all kind of measured a bit differently, whether we do it on individual surveys or whether we measure the economic valuation, and it's how we engage with stakeholders and how they measure their enrollments based on our activity.
I guess, in general, are they measured annually?
Right.
How does the information come back?
At this stage, they'll be measured annually. As you know, the project was only funded for 1 year, so at this point, we're looking at a major survey by the end of this year with our stakeholders to gauge the impact it's had thus far. But I need to couch that usually with international education strategies such as this, you're not really going to see an impact in terms of changing numbers or changing the profile of Dunedin as a viable international study destination and source of expertise until about a 3-year period.
So you're hoping it'll keep?
We're hoping, well, I would imagine that with education being such a huge part of Dunedin's economy and international education being such an integral part of both a central government campaign to increase our export earnings as well as provide a better profile for Dunedin to the world, I would imagine that you'd want it to continue, yes.
And we have baselines for those?
We do have
measurements
we have baseline right now. We have an economic valuation baseline as well as the institution to be aware of where the enrollments are coming from.
And those enrolments are done annually, so it's really a simple case of annually how the numbers go and what's the trend.
And we also keep track of what the enrolments are in Dunedin City as a whole. We have that information from the Minister of Education that was included in the ODT article that was over the weekend. So we have really clear information about where we are right now, where we want to be, and more importantly, as you've noted, we have a strategy to help get us there with metrics and outcomes along the way. So it's quite smartly laid out.
Councillor Peake.
Yeah, thanks for this report. For either Sarah or Mike, I just wondered about the Education New Zealand contribution. I think it's 50,000. And wondered, well, for a start, which part of the central government do they sit in? Is it the ministry or the tertiary? Yeah, thanks. And can we expect any more money from them?
Well, that's hopefully something we can have an ongoing discussion with them under their regional partnership program. The 50K that we obtained for them was for the Steady Dunedin brand development. So we need a website and a video that will sit within the Dunedin brand as it exists right now. Education New Zealand is a Crown entity. They have dual reporting responsibilities to Minister Joyce, as well as the Minister of Education and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. So they're similar to NZQA, similar to Tourism New Zealand in terms of being a Crown agency. And they're specifically to advance and extend New Zealand's international education interests across the world.
That's very laudable. One other question, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Just under Project Stay, part of your effort, just wondered about the uptake among sort of Dunedin business or Otago businesses.
That's something that we've only just started, sorry to interrupt. That's just something we've just begun a campaign to kind of engage with business to talk about the value of hiring and retaining an international student. So we're working with other projects within the enterprise Dunedin, such as Sexy Summer Jobs, to bring a more international focus and perspective and advocacy for international students based on business need.
And the uptake so far?
I can't comment to that.
Councillor Vandevers.
Given that it's a new initiative and that the aim is to advance education potential across the world, I don't think it's something that we can really have any queries about until we've actually seen, as you say, some you're not going to see the impacts for a few years. But you're wanting to advance education potential across the world, and I understand that means bringing a lot of overseas students here. Do you also consider the potential downside of losing quite a bit of our intellectual property back overseas? I'm thinking in particular of the high-tech end of the agriculture industry, the fact that we see Fonterra, etc., opening up big dairy productions in China now. Do you consider, when you're advancing education potential across the world, do you consider that there might also be a downside and that we're actually exporting quite a bit of our IP potential, our intellectual property?
I don't personally. I think I think if we lose, we will also gain. I think this is about partnership, this is about relationship development. I mean, I just think of the recent trip that I was at for instance, there was a very good discussion with one of the major universities and Otago University about further research development around cancer. We can put stuff on the table, they can also put stuff on the table. So I think it's about how you work collectively together. If countries want what we have, they will get it. If we do it working together, I think we will all win out of that.
So you see a real potential for actually sharing IP, not just ours but theirs as well, and a net benefit from the whole lot?
I think it could be both.
Okay.
I think most of the time that when we engage on the government-to-government level around education, it is about partnership. It's about enabling other economies to benefit from New Zealand's expertise. Like when we think about Thailand and primary schools, that's actually an area where the New Zealand government is currently consulting. Also around standards and qualifications, so how do we have a similar system in other developing economies that New Zealand has gained from, like with NZQA. There's a new commercialization manager within NZQA to look at how do we package up New Zealand's consultancy expertise and then have that sold to governments to help enable them with their own development. So it is a partnership-based approach, is how we share New Zealand's expertise, and this is part of that too.
Councillors, is there someone who'd like to move?
Just one more comment before we begin. I do want to remind you about the Leadership Forum for International Education. I think many of you would have received an invitation to that. So it's this Thursday, July 31st at St. Margaret's College, University of Otago, from 4:30 to 6:30. And this is really a chance not to just talk about Project Expert Education Uplift, but it's basically going to be facilitated by Education New Zealand. So you have a chance to better understand the New Zealand government's goals and support around international education. That gives you a better sense of the support resources and impetus to grow the value of international education across New Zealand for the benefit of both New Zealanders and international students that are here. So I do implore you to come along. You're most welcome. Got more invitations. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll send you another one.
Moved Councillor Hawkins, seconded Councillor Wiley. Discussion. There is none. I'd just like to make a little bit of comment before offering Councillor his right of reply. Firstly, I'd just like to thank Sarah for her work. I was fortunate enough to meet with some of the Education New Zealand team last week, and the feedback that I read into that meeting was that we are doing some pretty good stuff here, and there is quite good support from Education New Zealand for what we're doing. And given that this is a key part of our economy, the education and knowledge economy is a large sector in our GDP here, I think the moves that are being made associated with education can have a very significant effect on the city's economic performance. So I think it's a matter of watch this space. And Sarah, thank you for your work so far, and we might want to keep you here a little longer. All right, Councillor Hawkins. All right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried.
Thank you so much.
That brings us to item 7 on the agenda, and I will vacate the chair for Councillor Bazette, since I feel that I have a potential conflict.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been suggested to me that because we don't have staff here today to talk to this particular item, that I move a procedural motion to refer it to the next council meeting. And I think that probably makes sense. Certainly I have some questions with regard to the service level agreement, which I don't believe, with all due respects to my colleagues, can be answered around this table here today. So I will move that this item be referred to the next council meeting, being seconded by Councillor Evangelos. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, no. That's carried. Thank you.
Short vacation.
Yeah, well, you can learn a lot from me.
That brings us to... Thank you for your advice. That brings us for item for notification for the chair. Councillor Hawkins.
Just one thing, given the concerns raised in the project export education uplift paper around the entire situation, I just wondered if we could get a response from staff as to what Education New Zealand, the grounds for the decision that they made, essentially on our behalf as executives. We were sort of following the lead, so I'd just like to get an idea of what that was sort of based around.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any others? In that case, we will close this part of the meeting.